Hello everyone, welcome back to Rolling Solo. My name is Adam Smith, and this is the Gloom of Kilforth component overview. Now, what I've done in the past when I've done component overviews is I've typically done them after my unboxing, but I found that it was actually better to do them after I'd finished my full playthrough. That way I can give you kind of a better idea of things that I like and dislike. Not necessarily just about the game mechanics or anything like that, but more so about the components and things that probably would be better to change in the next revision or version of the game, that kind of thing. And the things that were great and stood out and really appealed to me. So let's go through it kind of one by one. I think I have about 4 points that I want to make, and I'll try to remember all 4 of them as we go along. And again, first off, I want to thank everybody for joining me on the playthrough. It was absolutely incredible. I believe we're in the final, at this point in time, 6 days of the Gloom of Kilforth giveaway. So if you haven't had a chance to sign up for that yet, make sure you do, because somebody is going to be winning a brand new copy of this game. And I'm going to be super excited because it's my first giveaway going out the door, and it'll be pretty awesome. So, and I'm sure after you've seen the playthrough that you are most likely interested in getting this thing for free, and that's always appealing to anybody. So let's go through the components. First off, obviously the first thing you talk about when you see Gloom of Kilforth is the art. It's kind of right in your face. It's incredible, and this box on the shelf shines. It pops right out. All the colors are vibrant. No complaints whatsoever about their decision to pick one artist to go through the entire game, essentially, and create a uniform look in the art across everything. That was a very, very smart decision, and I saw during the Kickstarter that there was talk about either doing it with multiple artists or just one artist. Massively good decision on Tristan's part to go with one artist versus many. Now, I don't want to compare this because this is not a game that you can really compare with Lord of the Rings, the card game, but I'll just bring it up in the sense of multiple artists. Lord of the Rings, the card game, is a magnificent game. It's an amazing solo game, something that I wouldn't mind doing a solo playthrough in the future of as well. But that's not really what I want to talk about. What I want to talk about is the fact that in the artistry of the cards, you'll notice, if you actually are familiar with the game, that there's multiple artists doing the artwork. So it's something I have like a love-hate relationship with, because when I typically buy a product, I like to have it look uniform. And so by having multiple artists in a game, sometimes I think it can take away. Like, in other words, all the artists are great artists, but there's typically one artist that's like one level above. And so what will end up happening is you open up a deck of cards and you find yourself gravitating towards a certain artist's style. What I really like about Gloom of Kilforth is they chose one individual to go through the entire game and make it look uniform. It was a really smart decision, because if they took a game like this and broke it across multiple artists, I guarantee you I would have been able to go through the box and say, here's my favorite artist, this is my favorite card, or these are my favorite sets of cards done by this particular artist, the rest are okay. So it was very smart on their part to go ahead with that. So that's the first thing I want to mention, is obviously art, just to get it out of the way, because that's the biggest thing that pops when you first see Gloom of Kilforth is obviously the art. So we're going to go past that now, because we want to talk about the component this is a component overview video, so we want to talk about the components themselves. So the first thing I'll talk about, because it's right on top, is the rulebook. So I spent a lot of time in this thing. Reading it, going over it, all that kind of stuff. There is one thing that I think could be done better, and I hope I can articulate this correctly, but my thoughts essentially with the rulebook is certain portions of it are fantastic. Like this certain section here with the setup, very straightforward, shows you how to get it to the table. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4, like all the way down to 15 of all the different tasks you need to do to get it to the table. That I found no problems with, and that's the kind of layout I like. It's in step phase kind of approach, and you can just follow the steps, get all your pieces on the table, and you're ready to go in possibly 10 minutes or so if everything's already out of the box. So that's awesome. What I think gets a little bit confusing is, I think what happens is there's a little bit of a breakup, or the problem with this rulebook, I think, and it's not necessarily a game-breaking problem or anything like that, but I think the issue with this rulebook is I feel like it should be 2 books. I feel like there needs to be 2 separate rulebooks for this game. One that's kind of like, here's how to play, here's your setup, here's essentially taking you through the first couple turns, just give you kind of a brief idea of what you can do, and it's a really thin kind of, procedural type thing. And then the second one is more like a reference reference, or, you know, extra information that is just good to go reference when you run into it type thing. The problem that I found with this rulebook is the referencing and the rules, the actual core rules, are so mixed and intertwined together in the rulebook. It does leave the possibility open for someone to miss something during a read through the rulebook. You will miss things because certain things are not in the places you think they should be. They're in different places. So, and everyone, you know, if everyone was to read this rulebook, you'd have an opinion on where you think it should be because there's so many different sections of it. So that's one thing I would say is just like some of these sections are fantastic. Like this layout right here where you have nice open areas. You're saying these are the types of cards. Here's what they involve or what's on them. Perfect. This is the kind of stuff that's awesome. I think what happens is once you get into, like you have your winning the game and playing the game, once you get into this area going forward, things start to mold and it gets a little bit confusing. And I will show you one reason as to why I think it's confusing. And this is just an example because I can't go over the whole thing, but the one thing that kind of threw me for a loop was engagements, and what I found kind of harsh was having to go through the engagement rulebook and actually try to decipher which parts were specific to a general engagement and what were specific to an ancient engagement. In other words, if you look at this paragraph right now, you have to read this from top to bottom of the engagement section to figure out what section of that actually applies to an ancient battle versus just a regular core monster battle, when really there should be some color coding in here to say, you know what, all ancient related information is either not even in the core set, like in a separate book or whatever, or it's in here but it's highlighted and maybe it's a different color, maybe it's in a different box, whatever. But you'll notice right here it says if the foe is an ancient, you do this. So in other words, here's your core mechanics, but then it talks about the ancient. And what ends up happening is you have these two things going back and forth throughout the entire engagement, which just causes, you know, it doesn't necessarily cause a problem. It just could lead to somebody potentially messing up and doing something out of order, out of sequence. So in terms of my opinion there, obviously not a game-breaking issue. The rulebook is fine. It is good. I just think it could be great. And I think they could probably do one more revision on it to really just hammer out the core mechanic of what they're trying to say here and keep another section for the additional reference type stuff, whether that's in a separate book or it's highlighted differently, something along those lines. So I won't go on that too long. That's essentially what I'm trying to get out of this. The rulebook was good enough because I got through it no problem. There, of course, were some things about the keywords that were a little bit difficult to decipher at times or redundant and stuff like that, or maybe just don't need to be there. So on cards, I think they had a map keyword, things like that. I don't even know if they really even need to be on the cards, but that's fine. And it's all referenced in here at the very back. All the keywords are referenced. So it's not like they're saying things on the cards you can't find. They've got the reference in the right portion of the rule book, like in the very, very back. You can go to here for your ability types and your ability terminology. It's all there. So there's no issues that way. It's just more so, it should be broken up a little bit better, I think. So that was one thing I would change. The second thing is the insert actually that comes in the box is actually not bad. It's good enough. I was able to sleeve my cards and get them all in here. I couldn't get every card in, so you can see there's a bunch of card sleeves sitting in the corner here. And then I just threw all the bags in, you know, on top of it and stuff like that. So the insert's okay, but really, in my opinion, I think the insert could have been made a little bit better. I think they could have made, what they probably should have done is made an entire row straight across somehow. Now, I do realize there's obviously design reasons as to why they set the insert the way they did, because there's tiles and all this kind of stuff in the box when you first open it. But I think it would be really cool if they were able to find a way to make a row for your cards so that you can actually get all your cards just into a row somewhere. It would be nice, dividing in half, whatever. As of right now, I have 3 huge stacks, and the third stack doesn't even fit. But this is actually perfect. I like this because it's like, okay, you know, it's not like an amazing card holding situation, but at the same time, it's neat and tidy, and I can actually divide my cards up. I got I got them all individually organized and stuff like that, and maybe some divider. I don't know, it depends on the space of the boxes. Is maybe something they already went through, but if they could have dividers inside the box on the next one so that you can actually put your hearts in a pocket and your gold in a pocket, your black, because really at the end of the day, when you want to play a game, I want to be able to play out of this. You should be able to play out of this box. You shouldn't have to literally take everything out and put it on the table. I think it would be better if you could actually have your gold sitting in a container over here, like in a certain compartment and stuff like that, and you could just reach in and grab what you need. So that's just one thing. Again, pretty minor, not a big thing. And at the end of the day, it may be over my head in terms of how they actually produced it, and when those when the game's actually produced and all the cardboard that's put inside the box, it may not allow for them to change the insert at all. Maybe they don't have any choice, and this is what they had to do. But I just think the insert could be just a little bit better. It's not terrible. It's just okay. And the other thing I want to mention is the dice. And I'm not going to pull them out of the bag, but I got 6 dice in here. There are 6 black dice that are included in the game, which is definitely too little. So the next time that this game likely goes through either a Kickstarter or a revision upgrade, I really think that either a stretch goal or a production increase on the dice would be of huge value. I had to go to 2 other games in order to pull out I had to go to 2 different Zombicide games basically to pull out enough dice to be able to even have enough dice on the table to roll my character's roll. Now again, you're not going to be using much more than 6 dice at the beginning of the game, but once you probably get past day number 7 to 10, somewhere in that range, you're starting to teeter past 6 pretty easily. Like, you're going to be rolling much higher than that. So I think that would be huge, to be able to include some additional dice in the game. That would be a huge plus, and that's the third thing that I would kind of adjust in this. So far we talked about the rule book. We've also talked about the dice. We talked about the insert. In terms of the quality of these wooden tokens, they're perfect. I have absolutely nothing bad to say whatsoever. They're awesome. They're great. The thing is, I had heard that they actually went up a size, so they went from, I think they were smaller than this originally in the first version that Tristan received, if I remember seeing that video correctly. These are perfect. These are a perfect size, so kudos to him for jumping up to the next size on that one. I have no qualms with these at all. They're all straightforward. It's like, okay, these are gold coins. Like, everything looks the way they should look. And if you're hidden, you got kind of like a bush or a tree symbol there. So I have no problems with that whatsoever. So the components, in terms of the wood components, awesome. Standees, perfectly fine, no issues there. Dice and all the little tokens, no issues whatsoever. It was really nice to include the dice, or the bag basically for the tokens. That's also awesome. So I appreciated that. The only other thing that I would mention, and I think this is pretty common though, so I left this to the end of the video essentially, but the idea that that you essentially have a card. This is actually the wrong one to use, sorry. But if I was going to play a character, like if I was playing Tristan himself, and I was playing him in the game, maybe that's a really terrible example. Let's go with, here we go. So essentially when I was playing my dwarf, I had a race card, which is a dwarf, and the class card, which was a priest. Now, I would use this as my avatar in the game, typically with a stand, and it would kind of go across the map. I used a mini during the entire game, but you're supposed to use a standee to move around and stuff like that. My only qualm with this is that I just really personally think that it should have been race-driven in terms of what you look like, not your class. And the reason I say that is because your race really differentiates yourself and your look as a person. And then your class kind of differentiates you in what you're wearing, or maybe it might also alter your appearance a little bit, but it really doesn't have as much tie-in, to be honest. So for instance, like, I'm a dwarf priest, but when I look at this, I go, okay, it just doesn't jive at all. The only thing that jives is the fact there's a cloak, like she's wearing kind of like a cloak, and she's got kind of like a staff there. It's like, okay, that's the only thing that ties into the character that I pulled. So I really think as either a stretch goal or something to change in the future would be to create standees for each of the different races. And then regardless of what class is pulled, you can use your own imagination to basically imagine them in a certain clothing or outfit or whatever, or attire. But at the end of the day, if you're an elf, you should see pointy ears. If you're a dwarf, you should be short, stubby, have a big beard, or whatever variation. It doesn't have to fall into those norms. It could be something, off, whatever. But I'm just kind of saying that I found it really difficult to look at this and be like, yeah, I'm a dwarf. It doesn't work. So I basically went ahead and grabbed the miniature out of my Zombicide Black Plague, because I was like, oh, this will be much better, and I'll be able to look at him and say, hey, that's a dwarf, perfect. Again, super minor stuff. So component quality overall, awesome. I don't really have too many qualms. The biggest issue I had was the dice. I think that was a little silly, just because it's such a dice-heavy game for rolling dice. To only have 6 dice in the box reminds me a little bit of when I opened up Eldritch Horror for the first time, and I think they included like 4 D6s and or maybe it was 6, and I just my jaw hit the floor because I was like, it just doesn't make sense. So that would be the one thing that I would, that would be the one biggest thing. If all these got chucked away, forget, no changes to the insert, leave these as they are. Don't change the rulebook whatsoever. Honestly, the dice was the biggest thing. You should have all the components you need in the box to play the game. You shouldn't have to go to a different game in order to bring those components into this one, is my thought process. Anyway, the box itself was incredible. Like I said, the artwork on it is amazing. This is a sturdy box. It's not a cheap production or anything like that. It's very nice. It pops. It's very glossy, and it shows up on the shelf. It's amazing. It's awesome. Card quality, obviously I haven't talked about cards and stuff like that. To be totally honest, they are superb. They're awesome. The artwork is like crisp as anything, so you can just take a look at that. And I mean, I don't know if I have a game that is this nice looking, to be honest. I think Lord of the Rings would come very close in terms of its art. I'm just trying to think if there's anything that could beat this, but I honestly don't think there is. I think it's probably the nicest looking game in my collection, and I believe these cards are of a solid stock too, so there's no issues there. I got them all sleeved just because I'm so terrified of ruining any of them because they're so nice. And then the mini cards are are interesting. The mini cards are a little different though. They're a little bit bigger than the standard mini size, I believe. So instead of them being kind of like Zombicide-ish size, which I should be able to tell you what that size is, and I don't remember off the top of my head. But regardless, I think these are just a step up from that. So I think these are Euro mini sleeves, if I'm not mistaken. I'll have to double check that. Yeah, so at the end of the day, these are nice size. Like you get some art, you got some artwork on the cards and stuff like that. The text is easy to see. There's no issues there. So anyway, overall, awesome production quality, very good. Couple minor things I would change. I'm sure some other people have their thoughts. So what I'd like you to do actually is, if you have thoughts on what you saw during my playthrough, or even if you already owned the game prior to my playthrough and already had your own thoughts, or now you just, based off of my little conversation here, have your own thoughts, make sure to throw them in the comments below, and I don't know, maybe it'll go out there and Tristan will see it and take it as into consideration for future versions of Gloom of Kilforth. I've heard there's rumors of potentially an expansion for this game that's going to come down the line, so maybe in that expansion some of these types of things can be addressed, if it's a Kickstarter especially, and stuff like that. Who knows? But it's worth mentioning because if you can make a game better, why not? All right, so that's pretty much it for me. Thanks again for watching. Appreciate all the support, and this is the end of the Gloom of Kilforth playthrough officially. So I'll see you guys in the next series, whatever that is. It's a surprise. I'll see you in the next one. Keep on rolling solo.